nobody has a crystal ball, but you know, human civilization rose and thrived and got to where it is today in terms of its number and its wealth and all the rest, in the most calm, unchanging climactic period in the entire history of the planet. And 18,000 years ago, which isn't such a long time ago, the water was 280 feet lower than it is now. So in 18,000 years, there was a 300-foot change in the sea level. And the sea level is really the critical issue at play, in my opinion. The rising temperatures, okay, so we get stronger storms and bigger rainstorms, but we can survive those things. We have better weather forecasting, we have stronger houses, we have better ways of evacuating and dealing with these emergencies. The one thing that we cannot deal with, and it will eventually be it's the Achilles heel of the planet in terms of climate change, is sea level rise. And we've set in motion in the carbon cycle, especially, a chain reaction that if we stopped today using hydrocarbons for energy, it would still take over 100 years for the things that have started to happen to raise the temperature of the Earth. So the temperatures are going to keep rising for 100 years or 120 years, no matter what we do. I mean, the only thing that would change that would be some way of capturing the trillions of tons of carbon that are up in the atmosphere, and there is, and maybe 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, yes, that will, that technology will be available, but it isn't now. So without it, you have to know that the temperature of the Earth is going to keep getting warmer. Hopefully not as fast and not as high, but as long as that is happening, the sea is going to keep getting higher and higher. And even if you stop burning fuel today, the ice in the Iceland and the glaciers and Antarctica are going to keep melting. And the more they find out about it, the more research they do, and lots of money are now being pumped into that research, the more devastating the news is about the fragility, our increasing perception of the fragility of the glaciers in these two places. And between them, they account for 40, 50 feet of sea level rise. That's not, if all of them were to melt, it would be over 120 feet of sea level rise. Even the rising temperature, all the sea level rise that we've experienced right now, which is fairly considerable, it's a foot here, a foot and a half there, all of that rise is attributable simply to the warming of the atmosphere and the warming of the oceans. And that's just thermal rise. The increase in the molecules are further apart, and so the sea has gotten deep, higher. The sea level has risen. From this point on, it's when the glaciers start to melt, and they are melting faster and faster and faster and faster, that's going to contribute a much more rapid increase in the sea level. And I don't know how we manage to move cities like Philadelphia and Miami, and I mean that's the pressing, how do we adjust, and you can't adapt to the kinds of water level increases that we're going to have by the end of the century, which will be 10, 12, 14 feet of water probably in the next 80 years, 75 years. some of the biggest cities in the world are at water level or near. Boston, every time I get on an airplane to fly out of Boston, I just look at those runways 3 feet above the sea level. And I go, just a simple thing is how we can't just build another airport in Boston. I mean, there are $1 trillion things, that, and that's just one little element of our society that is going to have to change at some point. We'll be forced to that. Anyway, I just think that we can do it. We just have to start planning now and spending. We have to start saving our resources and channeling our resources in ways that will allow us to get out of this. I have every reason in the world to believe that the hydrocarbons are a thing of the past. I mean, even the big Exxon and all the big companies, the oil companies in the world recognize that and are changing their business models. Trump keeps opening up the Arctic and nobody takes up the bids because nobody, wants to invest billions and billions of dollars to dig up oil that nobody's going to use. And that's really, where we are at this juncture in our lives, our communal lives. So we will, end that era. But meanwhile, we have to clean up from the net effects of that usage over the last 200 years, which has given us, the wealth to do that. But we just have to, channel it and use it in a way intelligently so that, the fewest number of people are affected. And in my novel, that didn't happen, and the dissolution of society led to the kinds of pandemics that we've experienced in the last year and a half, because the infrastructure here we are in the wealthiest country in the world, and we don't have the infrastructure just to deliver a vaccine that people desperately need so that lives can be restored in some sort of orderly, predictable, way. And if we can't even do that, how are we going to move, a dozen of our most important population centers, to safe places where, the life and economy of those people can continue, with a minimum of sacrifice.